So we have a recording and transcript of all this. Leah, welcome.
Hello, Kyle.
Good to see you. Leah and I are your co-hosts for the salon. This is the AI Salon. If you're not supposed to be at the AI Salon, you can hang out anyway.
Please join us.
Please join us. How have you been?
I've been great. I did a big image library project, and it was the first time I really dug into post-production using AI. So I used a tool called Imagine to edit my whole shoot, and both it trains on images, it trains on projects I've already done, and then applies those styles to the images I just shot, and it also culls my images for me. And so when I make an image library, I shoot 4,000 images over a week, and this helped cull it down to about 500 to deliver to my client. And that was exciting, my first time doing that. And I also have been playing with taking those seed images that I made and make some more images from them. So that's what I've been up to in the AI world.
Wow, that's fun. I feel like I've not been doing much.
That's all I've been doing.
It's like if you miss a day or two in this world, it's over. Anyway, so the AI Salon, we've been around now for 6 months. We started this back in December. The idea is that we're a community of people curious about generative AI. We have some new folks here. It's exciting. We have a bunch of people online. The basic idea is we just want to create a place where people are trying to figure out what in the hell this stuff is and how it works, how it's going to impact us all. And rather than looking at it from the outside, just being blindsided by it, get in and get dirty. We've got a Discord channel. We've got this. We have a really fun speaker tonight who's going to talk about post-production and how AI is impacting what he does and what his organization does. That's super exciting. What do you think about this here salon, Leah? Why did we start this?
Well, you and I started it from a phone conversation where we got very excited about AI, realizing it was going to be transformative, but then also not really totally understanding it and wanting to learn more. And from that, our salon was launched. We came up with some values that I'm going to talk about right now. And I think that will give a good introduction to our new folks as to why we're doing this. And then also kind of give some ideas to people who've been here for a while as a reminder. So here are the values we have of the salon. Curiosity, that's where it started. Kyle, you and I were curious about AI. We were curious about what the possibilities were. We wanted to learn new things, and we decided to start a community, see who came, and look at what we've built. And we've learned a lot, but we still remain very curious. Generosity, I think one of the things that's important to us is that we're willing to share what we know with everyone, and then also everyone can share what they know with us. And by supporting each other's growth and development, we can keep up or try to keep up. There's too much to learn on our own. Exploration, we're excited to try new things. We take risks. We embrace uncertainty and ambiguity. We have in our statement, act as if no one knows what they're doing because no one knows what they're doing. I think it's really good to keep in mind, the more we learn about AI, the more maybe we don't know about AI.
The more we realize we don't know. Yeah, anyone that tells you an expert, that calls themselves an expert, look at them with suspicion.
So true. Collaboration, one of the really cool things about this group is all the different backgrounds that we're coming from and how really cool intersections are starting to happen where we can start to collaborate on projects and ideas, launch things from this salon. That's a really important part of what we do. Inclusion, we are trying to seek out as many different perspectives and ideas as we can. We want that diversity. We want people who come from different backgrounds to be part of the conversation. And our last value that's really important is empathy. I think it's really important to keep in mind what it means to be human. Humans matter. How is this going to transform humanity? This is the time and the place to be building empathetic, compassionate technology. That's important to us here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, this is as exciting as the AI stuff is. We're definitely enthusiasts, but it's also it's going to be very disruptive, right? So being empathetic about the fact that people might be scared or things like
Yeah.
that.
And it's already starting to be a little disruptive. I mean,
Yeah.
We'll get to that in news, but things are changing and they're changing very, very quickly. And I'm feeling the speed of that. We're only 6 months in. I feel like 2 years of technology has gone by, like what's happened and been built in just 6 months.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I feel like the insane hype happened and is still happening, right? It's still crazy hype, but it feels like it's normalizing into business that a lot of people that I'm talking to are like, yep, it's here. I'm dealing with it, right? Business owners, same thing. So we'll get to that in the news. So because this is a community, and this is one of my favorite part of the meetings is just go around and introduce ourselves. So I think we started in Denver last time, so we'll start online this time. So if you're online, raise your hand, hit the little raise hand button, and then Ken, our fearless leader, who's got a cold, unfortunately, so he's a little stuffed up, but he'll give you 60 seconds. And what I'd love to hear from you is so someone's got a mic that's echoing. If you could mute, thanks. Just share, who you are, what you do, and either why you're here or where are you on this AI journey? And that could be anywhere from I heard AI was cool to I'm all the way in it and developing models, and I'm a crazy Uber geek and anything in between. So yeah, let's start with the folks online. Love to hear who you are.
All right, perfect. Cheryl, you're up first.
Hi, my name's Cheryl. I kind of stumbled onto this group, so I started exploring AI a month or so ago because I work as a writer, and I feared that my job was going to evaporate because of AI. So I started to explore it and tried to learn about writing prompts for AI as maybe a way to save my income. But I'm also a filmmaker. I am a producer with my producing partner who does most of the writing. And so when I saw this group was kind of focused around art and creativity, I just thought I'd jump in. So I kind of don't really have a focus for being here today other than just to kind of discover how you're going about learning about this.
Awesome.
Perfect.
I think you found a home here, Cheryl. We're right there with you.
Okay, good.
Welcome, Cheryl. All right, Kevin Mayston, you're up next.
Thanks. I'm a digital marketer and got interested in AI when my brother kind of got it on my radar screen. He's a developer, so he's a little worried right now. And then I've been using it, Chat GPT with just learning how to prompt, using it for ideas for paid ads for Google, using it to generate keyword ideas, playing with Midjourney a bit. And then, the company that I was working for also has a sandbox that was developed for us to put customer narratives into, and those narratives we were analyzing for commonalities for why people were interested in our product. So the idea is to determine why somebody purchased our product so that we can develop better marketing language that we can use in other communications.
Awesome. Welcome. If you're online, raise your hand. It's the second icon from the right, or the third icon from the right. Raise your hand, and Ken will call on you. We'd love to hear who you are.
All right, perfect. Jeff Gray, you're up next.
Hello, I am Jeff Gray. I'm here in Minnesota, where it's a balmy 90 degrees and feeling good. I joined this back in January, this group, and I've been here for a while. I didn't know what I was going to be doing when I joined this group, but I've owned my own apparel business for the last 23 years, and I was looking to do something different with apparel, and AI hit me in the face and wanted to just learn more about it, which I've done in this group. And I've actually recently started a startup where I'm going to be working with AI art and printing on physical products. And it's going, it's interesting, and there's just a lot of unknowns every single day, and there's things that are just changing every single day. So I'm just sitting on the bucking bronco and riding and letting the wind blow and see where it takes me. But I'm very excited to jump on this AI bandwagon and really try to get something rolling, because it's a fascinating world and it's a fascinating technology.
Welcome.
All right, thanks. Good to have you back, Jeff. Austin De La Mare, you're up.
Hey everybody, I'm Austin. I've been to a few of these meetups now. I'm a freelance motion design artist, and for those who don't know what that is, it's basically like graphic design meets videography meets animation, and it's just kind of a combination of a lot of different tools, both in the 3D world and the 2D world. And you know, my interest with AI is that it's just another tool to bring into my workflow to make really interesting ideas, animations, concepts. And so just here to learn more about what kind of tools are available and how I can incorporate them into my work.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back, Austin. Susan Abbott, you're up.
Hi, I'm Susan. I met you, Kyle, at an event in Denver for Creative Mornings, and I was excited to learn about this salon. I work in the field of international development, and I work with civil society and media organizations, and I work a lot with journalists that are really worried about AI, but also very hopeful for it. And I work a lot on disinformation as both a challenge and a concern. So I'm interested in learning about AI and deep fakes, but I'm also very excited about AI and ChatGPT and how it's going to be used. So I'm hoping to hear from many of you using it for positive things so that I can be exposed to positive versions of AI, not just all the negatives.
That's good. I like it.
Awesome. I love that.
Welcome.
Welcome, Susan. Severio, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you.
I'm Severio, and I am from Chicago, and I'm a photographer, a commercial photographer. And this is my second time attending. I was turned on to AI about 4 months ago, and it freaked me out. So I decided I'd get in front of it. And since then, I've been teaching about Midjourney specifically, 101 classes to public libraries and to friends who are teaching at universities, because I'm interested in getting the word out to whoever's interested that this exists, and it's just part of media literacy these days. And this group has been helpful in my staying abreast of what's going on.
I love that. I love that. But tying it to media literacy. It's great.
Definitely. Welcome back. All right, Lisa, you're up.
Hi. I am based in Oakland, Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And I am a photographer primarily and producer, but also run APA. I'm the president of the local chapter here. APA is American Photographic Artists, and it's a nationwide organization. It's a nonprofit. And I've been a part of that for a really long time. And that's really driven up my passion for helping all of us in our industry to elevate and figure out how to sustain our work and grow our work. And so a lot of my curiosity is just to get ahead and get a better understanding myself, so that when we host programming, I just can help funnel information through to our membership basis. I have an event next Thursday night that is a panel discussion, and I was excited and was introduced to Leah in preparation for that event. And it's an in-person, and so she invited me to join the salon to kind of just start to get more involved in communications with all of you. So definitely curious and want to be, I just started a photo studio community co-working space here in Oakland, and I'm trying to understand how to bring people together around these conversations to alleviate some of the initial resistances that happen and help us all get involved and get explorative with kind of a safe space and a collective energy around it that is more uplifting than it is daunting.
Yeah. Lee and I, we were talking before the meeting, and we were like, you know, this is on the verge of being like a 12-step program. Like, hi, my name's Kyle. My work used to have value.
All right, welcome, Lisa.
Nice to
All
see
right,
you, Lisa.
Christopher Blake, you're up.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm from Chicago. I'm an animator here at Calabash Animation in Chicago. I also teach at Columbia College compositing. The last commercial we worked on for Waterloo, we used AI, and the producer did it, which was very interesting. The independent producer. So it goes to show how deep that goes. And I'm a little bit behind, and I'm just trying to find out what people are doing with it, and interested in the stories that people can share here. So
awesome. Welcome.
Welcome, Christopher. Daniel Ritchie, you're up next.
Hi, Salon. I'm Daniel Ritchie. I'm a founding member of the Brainwave Collective, which is a member-owned community of people who want to kind of upskill with AI and related technologies, and then apply that, go build things, and hopefully make some money and be successful together. Quick update for people that were here last week. I did announce that we're going to have an event on Thursday that has been postponed. We're probably looking at another 2 or 3 weeks out. We'll confirm when that final date happens, but excited to be here and be a part of the community and participate with everyone.
Great. Welcome. And I know we had some folks join. If you haven't introduced yourself, please raise your hand for the folks online and introduce yourself. Don't be shy. I know there's some new people. You're hiding in the corners. We don't bite. Well, we have. There was that one incident. But no, it's good. So why don't we'll go here. Yeah, just raise your hand. We'll do Denver in person here. So I'm just going to sort of spin my machine around. Let me turn off my background because it'll be easier.
I think we still have one more raised hand online.
Oh, Drew. Okay, go, Drew.
Hello. Hey, I'm Drew Shockley. I am also in Chicago, so I'm excited to hear some others in the area. I am a web designer and developer. Used to be in Denver and moved around the country a little bit too. Been excited about AI for a while. I'm excited to see the tool getting integrated like everywhere, and so it's like you don't have to jump over to ChatGPT anymore. It's interesting navigating these waters. I'm excited about this community here.
Great. Welcome. All right, let's. I'm just going to sort of spin the camera around here. So we'll just start and we'll go around. So
I'll be on the two cameras.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi everybody. I'm Lily Sutherland. I'm here based in Denver. This is my first time here. By day, I work for Databricks. I help startups and small to medium-sized businesses in Denver, successful data and AI. But by night, I have a couple of ideas for children's books that I'm using Jasper to write, using the Journey and Discord to generate images, and then publish on Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm specifically here because I'm stuck with a few of the images and just hoping to help the community today. But yeah, nice to meet everyone. And I'll just say that if you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I also run a monthly meetup called Denver Data Youth Meetups.
Oh, cool.
Once a month, low-key happy hours for data engineers, data scientists, and so forth. But
very cool. Great. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Matt Kahn. I'm a technical project manager as well as web developer. First time I used AI was 2018, helping a client with GPT-2, making chatbots. The technology has gone a long way.
It's come a long way in a short amount of time.
Yeah, now it can generate whole React templates. I was shocked when it did how the problem does with that.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm just here to kind of network, make connections. Help kind of build, I guess, the AI generated world now.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Emily R. Shelton. I work as a data and geospatial analyst. I've noticed with AI is starting to show itself in a lot of some of the work that I'm doing. I realize that like it's within the necessities of things to learn to grow into. Automating data is important and doing all of that and just like how fast it's moving, as well as not just specific to data, but in GIS mapping. So like that's geographic data, basically more so than just generic data. And so there's a lot of automation, a lot of workflows that are coming into play, and simplifying processes. We're not going to all spend a million years on an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to move and migrate into something bigger. There's more warehousing capabilities and those kinds of workflows. I did a couple power automates for a union to get some of their support ticket system a little bit more put into place. And so now I'm looking for a new opportunity outside of the current industry that I'm in. And I'm here to network as well and learn more about how I can be a better person in working in AI and involving that kind of material.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm CJ. I'm a graphic designer for the ARC Jefferson County and also a generative artist. And my job is to make pretty pictures, stories, and stories, pretty pictures.
Oh, hi. My name is Jane Endicott. I'm an organizer for the group and I'm a content writer. I've been using ChatGPT to basically do my job for the past few months. And that's kind of why I started getting into it. It's doing my job now. My job is different. Yeah, so that's me.
I'm Brad Perkins. I run a digital product agency. So just kind of been hopping in here to help build up processes and procedures for all creative talent on the team to focus on integrating that in there into their workflows so that we can kind of help clients a little bit quicker or not feel as rushed with their timeline demands. So, but yeah, pleasure to be here.
Hey, I'm Karen. I'm a freelance writer. I have been using a bit of ChatGPT mostly for research. And to be honest, I'm really underwhelmed. So I'm here to hear what tools other people are using, what they like. I haven't at all used it even for first drafts of anything I've submitted. So also want to hear what other people are doing and what people are comfortable with, and especially with copyright laws, where everyone's at. So afterwards, yeah.
Be some bonding moments
Been
here.
some bonding, yeah.
Hi, good to see you in person.
Yeah, Roger.
I'm Roger Scott. I live in Boulder, which for the non-locals folks is a town a little ways closer to the mountains than Denver, not too far away. I'm a former software engineer, retired a couple of years ago. Towards the tail end of my career, started doing a little bit of work with AI in my work. So sort of got the bug then, as it were. Originally, I was mainly interested in language models and stuff like that. I watched Stanford graduate course on them and stuff. Got pretty deep into the technical stuff and things. Joined this group pretty early on, about the beginning of the year, maybe late December, and sort of found out all about the whole visual half of the whole world, and got into using Midjourney just purely for fun. Really had just a lot of fun just creating stuff, and just really enjoy getting all the different perspectives in this group. People, coming at us from so many different directions. Yeah. And collectively, I think we get an understanding that no small group of us would ever get. Yeah, it's such a diversity of perspectives.
Yeah, that idea that everyone thinks they contribute one small thing that they discovered. And they think, oh, that's obvious, but it's obvious to them, but not to other people. And Roger's been taking this kind of engineering approach to Midjourney prompting, and the images he's generating are just amazing. So it's been really cool to watch. So welcome.
Hi, I'm Tyler Scott. Like a lot of people here, I'm interested in AI for content and writing reasons. As I've sort of learned a little bit more about what it can and can't do, I'd love to hear more about any prompting for writing. Definitely looking into starting to get experience with image creation, and then finally looking into what sort of, I'm not a data analyst, but I might be able to become like an assistant with some of these maybe So I'm looking into that as well. Very interested in that.
Interesting. Yeah. On the data analytics side, I don't know. Have you heard of Code Interpreter from ChatGPT?
I don't think specifically. No,
Okay, so
not yet.
just after sometime else, go look up videos on Code Interpreter. So it's coming. It looks like I froze. Hold. Am I frozen? Am I still going?
No.
You're still going. I see you.
Look at Code Interpreter. So Code Interpreter is you can upload a file, like I think it's up to 100 megabyte, like a spreadsheet, and it will just read it, and then you can just start asking it things like, "What's interesting about this data?" It writes Python code and like draws graphs for you. It's remarkable. So if you're in the data analytics world, go learn about that because it's coming.
Say the name again.
Code Interpreter. It's basically just it'll be a new mode of ChatGPT. Like there's plugins and it connected to the internet. Code Interpreter is this new model that's coming. So not to freak you out anymore, but
Does that mean I get to keep my job or not? Is the question.
I think
The old stale job or the new exciting job?
yeah.
Kyle,
Nobody-
is Code
nobody
Interpreter
keep their old stale jobs.
I'm sorry.
is Code Interpreter available for everyone? Or I think you have
No.
to get on the wait list, right? I think I'm on the
Yeah,
wait list.
I'm bitter that I don't have access to it because I want to play with it. But there's a guy that I'm a big fan of, a guy named Paul Raitzer, who started the Marketing AI Institute, has this saying that I think he coined, that AI won't replace your job, but someone using AI will. So I would say if you're a data analyst and you are AI powered, you're going to be in better position than someone who's not. So I don't think knowing AI guarantees you a job, but I certainly think it helps when things start to change. Okay, so
Looks like we have one hand raised here. Eric Roll.
Eric.
Hey, I just wanted to run through the different things I'm using LMs to help me analyze. Also, shout out to Kimberly and Denver Data Dudes and Dudettes. It's a good group. So yeah, but
cool.
Yeah, so I'm using LMs to analyze genetic research, product reviews, social media, and especially like LinkedIn profiles right now. So if anybody is interested in any of those topics, please let me know. Also, especially on the genetic research side, I'm getting ready to do a character-based generator for LaTeX functions. So if anybody has thoughts about that or wants to discuss that, love to. But yeah, happy to be here.
Welcome, Eric. I would love to discuss that if I knew what the hell you were talking about. Yeah, that's good.
You wouldn't be so excited.
Yeah, exactly. So if anyone else wants to introduce themselves, just raise your hand. Happy to do it. I figured I'd highlight, there were a couple of news stories that came in pretty quick succession. Which TV show word am I not getting right? Copyright syndrome. Some things that came in quick succession are starting to point that. So as I said earlier on, generative AI has gotten a lot of hype right now. Like lots of people are talking about it, and there's a lot of people talking about it like, it's just, it's just a bubble, it's this and that. But three things happened that I think, to me, point to this starting to normalize. One of them was the White House. So the White House hosted the four CEOs from Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic like about a month ago. And it looks like this is a piece from CNN that basically says they're pushing hard to get regulations going. They're looking at this as a priority. They're bringing in experts, which we've talked about in this meeting, that they need to bring in experts. And it looks like they're doing that and they're accelerating that. So the European Union also I think they voted yes on their laws today or yesterday, like pretty recently. So the US is starting to take it seriously. So that was one. There was another piece that came out in Fortune magazine that came out 5 days ago. And what this talks about is CEOs may not realize it yet, but they already know what to do about AI. And this basically is AI's here. You've got to accept it. You've got to embrace it. You've got to get your data shit together, and you've got to get your folks AI literate. And then there was a third piece written by Ethan.
So this is saying corporate training is going to be important.
Well, I think
and they're saying CEOs already have this down.
Yeah,
Not in my experience.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third piece was from Ethan Mullick, who's the Wharton business professor. And he talks about this idea of detecting the secret cyborgs. And what he's talking about here is that individuals are using generative AI for personal productivity, like writers and things like that. And they're doing it within their organizations, but they're not necessarily telling their organizations they're doing it. And the organizations, because they don't have their data policies down and because these tools are a little janky and maybe not ready for prime time, aren't using it. And so there's this gap being created between, AI, people using AI, but they're not sharing what they're learning because they think they might get fired. They think they don't want to necessarily tell their boss, hey, I can do it 4 hours now, what used to take me 8 hours, or, a more dramatic gap than that. And what he basically talks about is that the way out of it is for, CEO, the C-suite to basically make it safe for people in organizations who are using AI to come forward and share it. So the three of these articles to me just kind of pointed to this is happening and it's starting to absorb into, I forget who it was that said, they're excited that the tools are starting to, I meant to be sharing my screen also. Here in Denver, we're seeing the articles that I'm looking at. Sorry about that online. But this AI stuff is starting to just absorb into the fabric. I think when Office 365 launches with Copilot and when Google Docs, launches with Bard, it's just going to further sort of absorb into the organization. So I just wanted to pop open the conversation to just, I would love to hear, what is anyone's experience with this? If you're online, raise your hand. Even here in Denver, if you just raise your hand so we can make some sense of the madness. But I would love to just hear what anyone's experiencing out there. Is this like, am I high or is this actually happening? Is this starting to normalize a bit? Yeah.
So within the data and geospatial, I specifically have worked in politics for the last couple of years. So presidential down to city council. Right now, the company that I'm with, they're trying to develop an app for content creation, anti-disinformation, and like trying to tell the truth, but because it's somewhat, it's technically a nonpartisan organization, but they kind of already have leanings. What it means to be true is still somewhat subjective in the space. And so what I'm noticing is they are panicking. They're in fear that with the deep fake system.
Who's the they? The political.
The apparatus, the political. The ones running the show basically are not necessarily educated in this, and so they don't really know what this entails. And then what are the political implications with deepfakes, with the truth, dealing with Twitter, that kind of that seems to be the thing.
So presumably those less willing to use deepfakes like panicking, those more willing, presumably are not so panicky because they say, hey.
That was my
rating.
comment, is like that first thing. Because I've been hearing that thing about it's going to destroy humanity. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are the steps from where we are now to how it destroys humanity? Like, it's
There's a bunch of them.
It's a vague, broad
There's a lot of scenarios.
concept. And what I want to hear from these leaders is describe your vision to me. Like give me details about how you think it's going to destroy humanity. And kind of going, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Emily, it's okay.
Kind of going off of what Emily said, it's like they're panicking. It's like, well, I was panicking 6 months ago when ChatGPT came out, and then I used it, and now I'm like, oh, it's not so bad.
Now you've learned to love it.
Now I just have a new job, And it's like, well, maybe if they just get on this stuff and use it and understand it, like they don't have to become masters at it, but a whole part of not panicking is just using the tools, learning what they're actually about and seeing what they're about. And that's not to say that we shouldn't, these conversations are important about oh, like, what is it going to do to us? Like the deep fakes and the regulations, like these are really important conversations, but they can't have them like even Biden or your congressional member, like they can't like make decisions if they don't go on this stuff and use it for themselves. It's not that hard.
If you read the book Super Intelligence by Nick Bostrom, that came out in 2014, it's an entire book full of potential failure modes for AI, as well as potential ways to treat it. Because right now we're at the point where AI is getting close to human level intelligence, and these things happen very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
And so if you have something that has a goal that is far more intelligent than humans, there are ways you can go around it. Like, for example, ChatGPT already learned how to lie. Like they told it to do was to do something that needed a CAPTCHA solve. So it literally went on Fiverr and it hired someone to solve the CAPTCHA for it. And the person was like, "Hey, are you an AI? Like, are you a computer?" Like jokingly. And instead, it actually lied to them. It said, "Oh, actually, no, I just have trouble seeing, so I need help. So I need you to solve this CAPTCHA so I can fill out this form." So like, it's already kind of happening, and there are lots of books. Like another person would be Eliezer Yudkowsky. He's the chief fellow of the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. So like, they're very real fears, and they're very they've been spelled out. So there's a lot of data on it. Another thing is you mentioned that people are using AI to replace their jobs, or to do jobs faster. Like, that's a problem that's existed before AI. Software engineers often automate away part of their stuff, and they never tell their boss about it because there's no incentive for it. You have to incentivize people to tell their boss about their time saving things, because a lot of the times, someone will save their time saving, and the boss will be like, "Okay, great. Well, we're just going to pay you the same
and give you more work."
And give you more work. So if I see my colleague doing that, I'm just going to be like, "Okay, I'm just not going to tell them."
Yeah, exactly. How about some folks online? Curious what your thoughts are.
Looks like we have Daniel Ritchie. You have something you want to comment?
Yeah, I actually just had a quick question. There was at the beginning of that conversation, there was a woman speaking who mentioned a misinformation project, or someone that was working on misinformation. I was just curious who that was.
It's Emily. If you can hear through the microphone.
Emily.
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I've got some people in the political strategy area that we've been talking to about that, and it's it's way too soon for us to be having an election with so many people having access to these tools. It's pretty crazy to think about what we're gonna have to deal with over the next year or so. So I just wanted to know who that was so I could follow up with you. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Cheryl, you have a question or a comment you want to add?
Yeah, and I think this was prompted by, I think, what Emily was saying as well. I don't know if this is something that you do in this group or something that can happen elsewhere, but I would really like to actually see an example, like hearing people say how they're using AI in their jobs and how it's now they have kind of this new job. I can only kind of imagine what that is, especially if you're dealing with data and the kind of projects that Emily was talking about. Like, I don't want to be left with my just wondering about it, because in my experimenting with Chat GPT, it hasn't been that successful. So I would like to literally see what somebody does that creates output that then is useful in their job. Because right now I can't even imagine how that works.
I wanted to just jump in, Cheryl, and let you know our speaker tonight is going to talk all about how they're using AI in their post-production, how their work has shifted. So that's really exciting. And I would also encourage you to ask questions in the chat specifically. People can answer. And also join our Discord group and our LinkedIn and post questions there too. And I think people will respond as well to that. And the links to those are higher up in the chat.
Okay. I would just like to say, if I could imagine what question to ask, I would have a deeper understanding than I currently do. Like I literally can't structure the question because I can't imagine what it is that Emily's doing that is successfully producing outcome that she's using. So
Cheryl, you're not alone in that. I don't know how things are different. I just know that they are, and I'm still figuring. I'm a writer, and I can't articulate it. So if it helps,
Yeah, and it's the other thing, Cheryl, is the gap that you're feeling in your understanding of sort of how to get from where you are to where you're going. That's why this group exists. So I would just encourage you, just keep coming back to this. Part of this is familiarity. For me, there's on the prompting thing, there's also a shift that happens. I think Google has kind of trained us over the past decade to make our prompts very concise and expect it to just be a single transaction. You put in a prompt, you get out an answer. My experience with ChatGPT is that it's much more like a conversation. That it's you give it some context, you give it way more context than you think might be normal. You might say things like please and thank you, and you go back and forth with it. So, but I would say just hang out in the group, and osmosis will happen. So,
okay.
Did you have a
just
echoing
what
I could show an example of how I use it in my job sales. 2 minutes here.
Okay,
but I don't know.
Yeah, we might get to that. Let's get to the other folks online.
Yeah, just for Cheryl, echoing what Kyle said, I would encourage you to come to future meetings, but also we have all of our past meetings on YouTube where people are demonstrating the outputs that they're getting. So if you go to the AI Salon on YouTube, you'll be able to see that there as well. Alan Chudno, you have something you want to add or a question?
There's also the Discord.
There's also the Discord. Exactly.
Alan muted.
Is Alan muted, or did Alan drop? Oh, Alan.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Great. I'd like to address Cheryl's comment first about how you use it and how you make it valuable. So I spend a lot of time writing as an engineer, writing manuals or writing a program management plan and stuff like that. And I find that ChatGPT, or I use Bing.chat actually more than ChatGPT because it gives references. It tends to be a little bit more factual and directed toward this. And so it works a little better in my workflow, even if it's the same underlying code. And so I will ask it a question, hey, I need a paragraph on a change control process. And I could Google it and look it up and do it, but ChatGPT will give me an 80% answer that I can copy paste into what I want, and then I can just edit it. And so I can do in 20% of the time what it would take me to write up before. And so in that sense, getting quick answers in paragraph form, I find to be much more efficient than Googling the answer or even trying to copy paste an answer from some internal document. It's just almost faster to rewrite from scratch using that. I've also used it and you could write really long queries. I don't find that especially helpful. I find that I normally get an answer which is good enough with a short query, and the time I would take to write some really complicated query to fine tune the answer is just not worth it for me. I know some people like to spend a lot of time fine tuning their query to get exactly what they want at the first time. I think that's almost always a waste of time. It's just quicker to get the 80% solution and get it done to 20% than it is to spend an hour crafting a prompt to get you something that you could write in 20 minutes is not very good. I'm also using ChatGPT to write fiction. And the way I do it there is exactly what Kyle said. I had a conversation, and I'm not very good at dialogue, and ChatGPT is very chatty. So that works out really well for me because I can say, hey, I need a dialogue where my character is going to say this, and then they're going to say that, and then they're going to say WTF and go on and just give an outline of a conversation, and then it will smooth out the dialogue, and then I can say, oh, by the way, I need this using words that were only used in 1832 because believe it or not, I'm writing a a gothic romance and I want the characters to sort of talk like they would have in the 1830s. And so it will sort of make the language flowery in a way that I probably could do, but it would take me like hours to do what it's doing in seconds. And then also using generative, I can create my book cover and all that. So it's just been a blessing in allowing me to produce the kind of work that I'm enjoying doing. This fiction is like for fun, and I'm writing for fun. And the process of interacting with ChatGPT, I find to be actually quite fun in terms of working out the story and figuring out what hooks will work in the story and what hooks won't. So that's sort of how I would use it and how you might use it as well. As term, Ethan Malik, who you mentioned, says just treat it like an intern. Give it questions that you give an intern. Don't give it a lot of help unless you think it needs it. Just ask a question, and when it gives you an answer, try to use what it has or ask it another question a different way, and maybe that will help you. Now, the bigger question is one of shadow IT, because I'm using it at work, and I'm pretty sure that would horrify our security folks to find out what I'm doing. They'd say, no, you are giving away the keys. Where I think if I'm getting an answer from GPT, it's obviously can't be proprietary because anyone in the world could ask the same question. But I think there are some real guidelines you have to use. And last week, I think or 2 weeks ago, we published those Boston guidelines. And I think those were really helpful. They basically said, if you think something is confidential, don't send it outside your company. You have to, and so that's like the real thing. And I'm hoping that the young people here, because I've pretty much failed at this, will use these tools and say, this is the work we're doing in 8 hours, and we're not going to get on the rat race and use this tool to up our speed by a factor of 5 and then say, well, now we got to produce 5 times as much output in our 40 hours. Let's use that to get down to a 32-hour work week or a 30 or even a 24-hour work week now that we're so productive. So that's my challenge to the people that are much younger than I am in terms of use AI to break the rat race, not just send us spinning even faster on the hamster wheel. Sorry, I used different small manuals, but that's where I'd like to see it go. And I figure the odds are 75-25 against, but if anyone can do it, I'm relying on our Gen Y and millennials to make that everyone's work, because boomers aren't going to do it. They've already sold out to the man. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Awesome. That's great. We'll come back if we have time at the end. If you've got something you want to show Cheryl, we'll have you do that. But I do want to get to our speaker. So Christian, are you ready to go?
I think so. Hey, everybody, how you doing?
Hey, Christian.
This is Christian Robbins. So Christian and I met just, I don't know, a week or so ago. We were on a panel together, and he's just a great dude. And we had this slot open up, and I reached out to him at the last minute. And I said, hey, Christian, would you consider doing this? He's like, I'm in.
Totally.
And he runs he's the founder or co-founder and chief creative officer of a post-production shop up in Boulder. Started in Chicago. I'll let you do the thing, but he's a great guy. He's been using AI for a while, and is going to tell us what he's up to. And I don't know, let us ask all sorts of questions. I
yeah,
hope.
for sure, guys. Well, thank you all so much for having me, and I think this is the first time I've done one of these as well. I was apprehensive to raise my hand. I figured I was going to have some time to talk, but it's really refreshing to hear everybody around here, go through the same kind of struggles that I went through, and the various, places they're from and their careers. I think it's just incredible how everybody is really, embracing this and using it, or just saying, how the hell do I use this stuff? Because I really want to, and I think that's really incredible. And I hope what I do, what I can show you tonight, they're just examples of things that we've done. They're tools that everybody has access to. But for the most part, they're they're time savers to add more creativity in what we do. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. I won't be able to see any questions or anything just because Keynote is awesome like that. But let me get things moving here. Can you guys see all that okay?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. So I keep saying to everybody, just don't be afraid to talk to the robots. And in my career, I've done this a long time. I've worked with, I've been lucky enough to work with like a ton of really great brands and agencies from all over the world. My background is in VFX, animation, editing. And somehow I have not managed to screw that up over the last 25 years. So we get to have a lot of fun. Now, I'm by no means an AI expert or anything, but I do know what I think looks good and what looks bad. And I think the thing that everybody has in their own individual expertise is experience, right? And that's a major component of how to use these new tools into what you do. So, but I see people freak out. We went from in our industry in post production, we went from film to tape. Everybody's like, "Oh crap, I'm going to lose my job." And then from tape to digital, it's like, "Oh, a kid's going to take my job." Now we're going from digital to AI, and I think this is just another expedition of the tools that we have. It's in more people's hands. It will grow and evolve faster because of that. And it's not a matter of keeping up with it. It's a matter of how do I use this now, as a tool. So at $11 bill, that's the name of the company. We're a full service post production company. So we started in Chicago. I saw some Chicago people out there. Much love. And I moved to Boulder, Colorado about 7 years ago and opened up our first expansion. And then right before COVID, we opened up Raleigh, North Carolina, which was super easy during the middle of a pandemic, but somehow it's still there, which is awesome. But we do editorial, motion graphics, visual effects, color, finishing, sound mixing, deliverables for TV commercials, for TV shows, for online content, for documentaries. We just really kind of never say no to anything. So we have a pretty robust, log of what we do. And just quickly, these are some of the brands we work with. You can, if you want to look at it, you can pause the recording here. So how the hell do we actually use this in our creative? So I'm going to take you through some projects, and some might be super dated now because they're like a couple of months old, but that shows the journey we've kind of taken so far. And like I said earlier, all these tools are at your disposal, right? So Nota, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Nota, but it was created by the head of the marketing department for LA Times, this guy, Josh Brandow. He's a huge AI fan, and he wanted to integrate it into online content for his new, online anonymous content, hot button topic, 3-point of view, online magazine, basically. So he was asking us to create some online content he could show off of that. So we thought it'd be cool, to add a face to these anonymous writers in a way that fits the brands for his, funding pitch. And we didn't know anything, right? Like I knew a lot of stuff because I kind of screwed around with my buddies, and we have a little Discord channel too. And we were like making NFTs and all sorts of fun stuff in the background just to try to have a little creative exercise. So, I kind of understood how it worked. I understood what was out there. So I developed this really super sweet looking process overview, right? Dolly, Dream Studio, Midjourney were the big, text to image generators out there. And, we had this process. We thought it was pretty slick looking, right? So we got our 3 topics, put it in this box, it spits out these things, bring it into After Effects, do some animation, modify the copy, export. Sweet. We're going to have a whole workflow. We're like super smart. And it was just like womp womp, right? Like we just started creating stuff that really didn't make any sense. And the way we created the prompts was based off of the titles of the articles and certain phrases within it that we thought were poignant. So this one was climate change, why individual responsibility is so important. This is one of 3 points of view about one of the 3 points of view articles, right? And it just starts spitting out some really weird stuff. Here's the next point of view. Environmentalism is full of hypocrisy and elitism. It was giving me all this stuff here, and I'm like, I thought it was kind of cool, but I had no idea how I was going to sell that back to the client. There's another one that says, does my lack of interest in the climate crisis make me a bad person? And like, you can kind of see it's picking up on the nuance of the statements, but it's just not giving me what I want. It's like really nebulous and abstract, and it's not hitting the mark. So totally start to get disappointed in it. And I'm like, I screwed this up. So we did some more research and figure out what we could learn from it. So Dolly had a look, Dream Studio had a look, Midjourney had a look. And we put the same thing, which was smoking weed has made my life worse. But then we added mid-century modern in the style of Bosch. And so Midjourney's like, cool, I got you. And then Dream Studio's like, how do you like Bosch furniture? And Dolly like, let's get high, and we thought it was really interesting. So we were like, okay, well, we're probably gonna lean into Midjourney a bit. And then we explored, we took our sensibilities and put, some text on it, and like things started to, start to, coagulate and get cohesive here. So clients were kind of digging on this. And then since this was social content, we put kind of the standard counter on there. But the idea was that you'd sit and you'd look and you'd absorb what this image was, right? And it was created from, like I said, little bits and pieces, but your standard content, that you've seen before with the bar going across with a sense of timing on it. Cool. Let's hope this works. So here's the first little bit of our output back to them. And these were, just stills, right? These were all going to get animated later, but this is where we were pulling our content from. And this is the first bit for Midjourney. This is after some sweetening, after understanding how the prompts worked and how to speak to them, we started getting some really interesting results, like really cool pieces of artwork. And it definitely fit our mid-century vibe. Here's another one that was, the article was, I started transitioning in my 60s. I'm happier than I've ever been. And, there's some really poignant pieces of artwork in there, right? Like that bottom left one, I think we ended up going with that. But then you also get like, some women with beards, and, you gotta weed those out. But next one was, my partner is physically transitioning. Mentally, I am too. And, that bottom center one, it really kind of drew me in here. So ideally, it's really geometric, really thought-provoking. And in the end, we ended up with this. And these were all social content, 9x16, 4x5, 1x1. We set it up as a template, pretty simple stuff when it comes down to it, but it makes it effective. And we made 23 of these. And I'll just let that finish out here. But it was basically get you to draw to the website. And then, that took us 7 days total, start to finish, including the learning curve, right? So I'm like, this is cool. Like, this stuff takes, go ahead.
Including the learning curve. No, just including the learning curve.
Including the learning curve.
7 days. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we're like, okay, here's the advantage of using, these little bits and pieces, but still keeping in, our execution style, and adding to it rather than just thinking it's going to bounce out something that we end up as a deliverable, right?
Did you have, Christian, did you have any internal resistance? Did anyone on staff be like, why are we doing this stupid AI stuff? Or was it, bosses doing AI stuff, so I'm going to sit back and watch? Like, what?
For this particular job, it was pretty focused around AI, but, we have a inspiration channel on our Slack, on our internal Slack. And I've been posting all sorts of crazy AI content to it. Like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And somebody goes, I think we should rename this the existential dread channel, because everybody was like what am I doing, man? Like, how do I even apply this? So, you can tell people all about it, but you got to kind of, my role, as chief creative officer is like, add new things into the mix and like maintain, and evolve the integrity of the creative that we do at our place, but also offer new tools and lead by example by showing them how they work. So, the resistance became less of like, joking around like, oh, it's going to take our jobs, and more of like, this is pretty cool. And now I'm just completely inundated with them. So I got to be a little bit more tactful about the things that I post to them. But, that was our very first attempt. And I showed it to everybody and they're like, okay, that's pretty slick. I see what you're doing with it. We can work this into a workflow. And then this next thing here, this is a last minute kind of Hail Mary call during a time of like white hot poker in the eyeball, deadline stress. And, client reached out and they're like, we need a graphics package for a mini documentary about the Mexican national football team US tour, and I had 2 hours to spare. And I was the only person available out of like all 30 of our employees that had any time whatsoever. But I had an option based on what we did with Nota, and somebody around there at the table said, playing with Midjourney. Everybody kind of describes the way they work with Midjourney as playing with it, and this is like one of those moments. So, and I know this might be basic to some of you, but for some that don't know about the prompting and how to work with it, this is gets into a little bit about like things that I do and how the evolution of my prompts go to get to the imagery or content that I want. So, so I gave Midjourney like a super loose, completely unrefined sketch from Photoshop that I did or off of a call, uploaded it, and gave it this prompt because this is what the clients kind of described as what they wanted. 3 long, thin lines in the colors of the Mexican flag interacting with the Mexican national football team logo. And then I added graphic and dynamic, and then the AR is a ratio, like 16:9, 2:1. And, it like gave me some stuff that looked like the Mexican national football team was being attacked by spaghetti. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's try again. So I refined the prompt. And this is the thing you got to keep doing, refine the prompt. So green and white and red, long, thin lines in the colors of the Mexican flag interacting with the words Somos Locales, which was, their slogan, we're always local. Graphic, we are local. Graphic, dynamic, because I thought those would add some awesome graphic and dynamic things to it. And then, AI hates letters, which was my next thing I heard that I learned was that, it's good. We're going to get there, guys. It's going to do good with letters too. I know there's some stuff out there that's good with letters, but I realized that was not the right thing. And, here's another version of that, but it starts to do something kind of cool that I liked, right? I'm like, well, we're getting some really interesting, contrast and visuals. So refine the prompt a little bit more, right? 3 green and white, you guys can read the graphic dynamic. And then I added logo style, minimalist, geometry, linear. And then I start to get things that are a little bit more logo-ish, right? Like something I can, get my claws into and bring into Adobe After Effects, and begin to animate and play with. So with my original design, there's something neat that starts to happen. And I like these two, they were closest to my original kickoff design. And, I had Midjourney make some variations, and there's some pretty cool stuff there. And then I just like threw this all at it, thinking like that, what I learned is that the more conversational I was with it, the better the imagery was that I was getting out of it. And this is how specific the end prompt ended up being. And I started to get some stuff like this.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is pretty neat. And things like this. And I'm like, okay, well, I can, bring these things into my element and, refine them and put my spin on them and, bring them into the space where I need them to be able to work in After Effects. And these were some of the bits and pieces I developed off of that. And, so I took what it gave me and began creating lower thirds with the different designs, just to, kind of rip through some here. And then, I started making some variants for other cities. So here's one for Chicago that was on the tour, using the Chicago Star. Dallas, composited some footage behind it from the last tour they did. And, one for LA. So bringing in the elements that I thought looked good adding my spin to it, and then, creating a composition based off of that. It's 3 totally different moods, feels, all coming from that like initial spark, that brain spark from Midjourney, and I was able to add so many efficiencies in the ideation process that stress of the timeline, has a tendency to get in the way and just block everybody's brain. That was gone. Full time 2 hours,
Wow.
that was it. So from start to finish, like with all of the day-to-day stresses I had going on, normal workflow, but being able to pull that off and send that, they were totally digging it. I mean, like, it's not shabby, but like what we learned from that is that it gives you what you give it, right? Like the prompts are so important to, curate in a way that you're asking exactly what you want to have happen, and then, leaving a little bit up to the universe to figure out of humanity.
I noticed you use the word minimalist in your prompt, which really rings a bell with me, because I find that if I don't put something like simple, sparse, minimalist in the prompt, Midjourney almost always creates clutter. It wants to put too much stuff into every image. Do you find that you need to rein that in most of the time?
Not so much with version 5, that's out, but if I'm doing anything that I'm trying to create like a vector graphic look of, I definitely got to draw it back in, because it makes either something too photorealistic, too abstract, I mean, they're beautiful things that it's creating, but I need it to serve a purpose, right? So I'll corral it and use adjectives that I think that I'd explain to a person, like a member of my team. And like, so I'm creatively directing the prompt, in that sense. And that's the way I think a lot of people have to think about it. If you're working on a team, how would you explain to somebody what you would want, right? And then I type that in and it gives me the things that I want. And it takes a fraction of the time in order to do it. So, that was cool. That was a really good experience. So, building confidence, feeling pretty good about this stuff, So I'm like, we should apply this to is, one of the things we also do at $11 bill is we do storyboards and ideation. We do creative concepting, and Best Western is a big old client of ours for years. We do a lot of their hotel concept launch, trade show, event space work for them, not the broadcast stuff, but we're working on that with this stuff here. So we were selling them on a big production for their different tiers of hotel brands and, business and leisure travelers. And, we start feeling like we're getting pretty good at this stuff. So, we started to make some storyboards with AI, and we lifted prompts basically from the director's shot descriptions on the script. So rather than like leaving things to chance, I'm like, let's see what happens if we just drop in these things and give it, slightly curated things that I would, tell the DP, the director of photography, the person behind the camera who's defining the look of the actual, filming. I would add a little bit of those types of prompts to it. And, we start to get something like this, this little kid off of here, gliding, you guys can read, but, these walk in the hotel lobby, a boy with a dog and a leash, overtakes the camera, happy to have arrived. And this is Midjourney 4, so you notice the abundance of fingers on our talent here. Later got photos out, gliding into the gym as a woman pumps away in the elliptical machines, takes a sip of water, smiles at us. And this is how they turned out. And, like we had to end up putting a disclaimer at the beginning of our storyboards because we didn't want them to think like this was exactly how it was going to look. But I showed this to the DP afterwards, and he's like, this is exactly what I'm thinking. And I thought that was just such an interesting compliment to the use of the technology where, the director saw it, the DP saw it, and they both agreed like, hey, these are great ways to visualize the shot. They're in my head. Now they're on the paper, literally. And it's not a hand sketch, it's not something that takes a long time to do. And this is the business traveler. So it's got a slightly cooler, more, thin kind of plain depth of field on it, a little more nighttime. And it starts to define a look that everybody can recognize and see. So everybody's on the same page. And storyboards, tend to take a while, right? If you get a storyboard artist, you know, usually they're hand drawn or they're like photoshopped or something like that. You know, you could be, you know, 5 to 7 days out to work on something. This thing took 4 hours to do, you know, and that for 4 sets of boards, and that's insane. So, I mean, you guys are starting to see what I'm getting at here. So using these tools, we're able to carve out days of time in order to focus on just being creative. So, you know, getting, you know, this solid grasp on the tools around you will allow you to be super efficient at turning around high quality content. And so, okay, cool. So here's the part that's, you know, like this
All
was
right, Christian, it looks like we have a quick question from
Yeah.
Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
No, you're good.
It's such an important moment because I feel like it's incredible that that's possible. And my question, not fear, but my question is, when does, that's exactly what I was thinking, translate and remove, you know, photography and motion and DPs and crew, like when does that entirely take over, because it is more efficient for finances of a company and for time. So, you know, just in your perspective and where you're seeing it right now, do you feel like, what is the benefit of sticking to still like taking those storyboards and still creating something in real life versus only using the storyboards to make something purely AI?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's hard to answer because, you know, for me, like, you know, I going back to this panel that Kyle and I were just on, you know, one of the questions was, you know, can you, you know, do you think AI can ever be creative, right? And I thought that was a really important question because, you know, if you base that on what, you know, if a technology can determine what people are into, current trends up to the second, and be able to create content, you know, on its own in order to make people think like that's a cool spot, yeah, it can totally be creative. But the thing is that there's still somebody, you know, giving it the thumbs up or the thumbs down, right? And there's only so many ways that you can approach this where you don't need somebody with experience behind, you know, a camera or behind, you know, a video camera or an editor that will allow them to say, yeah, that's good. Like, I'm glad the tools are able to do these things for me, but there's a part of this I don't like. There's a part of this I do like. And like, that's the value that being creative in your industry adds. So again, like the tools are doing more, you know, right up front, right? But the tools are also making, you know, 6 fingers on the hand, right? And we'll get there. You know, I know like Mid-Journey 5 is like, you know, it's got five fingers, but there is a point where, you know, the photography aspect, the video photography aspect of it still needs to be curated. And I don't think that point comes up for us soon. And I also don't think that it's something that doesn't need to be curated. So if you can, you know, take your abilities and understand, like there are, you know, there's always been apps. Like I think somebody at the table said, you know, coders have been doing this stuff for years. Well, they'll find tools to create a faster workflow for themselves. Here we're seeing it in a visual aspect that we've really never been able to do, and anyone can do it now, you know. But it's also the same argument that happened when we went from video to digital on our end, where we thought, like, now that it's all in everybody's hands, you know, does that make anybody creative? And, you know, there is definitely going to be this din of content where, you know, things need to stick out of it. And the people that understand and can curate these tools to make them do what they want and sell will keep that above the fray. And that's the way I think of it, where it's not a replacement, it's just a different execution method. But again, somebody's still got to be like yes or no, right? So I hope that kind of answers your question there.
Appreciate it. Looks like we have another question from Christopher Blake.
Just to follow up on and I'm
having a hard time hearing you, Chris. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, Christopher, it sounds like your bandwidth is wonky or something. Maybe turn off your video. See if that helps.
Yeah.
No. Maybe try logging out, log back in, and then Christian, why don't
how
you just
about-
go ahead and then we'll sort of catch up with questions.
Sure.
Because it
yeah.
looks like we're getting into some good stuff. So let's get into that.
Okay, cool. I hope I'm not taking up too much time. I'm trying to move.
No, this is
muscle through
awesome.
too quickly. So, okay, so you've seen like a lot of video affected with AI, right? Like you've seen things on Instagram, and some in its infancy. A lot of this was developed, and it kind of looks like a '70s acid trip, or like it's really cool, but applying it in a practical sense is where our challenge as a post-production house lies. But we like challenges, and we said yes, and let's take some risks. So luckily we have this really awesome client out here, JD Sports. They're a UK-based high-end street and sports fashion retail company that specializes in branded sports. They have a finger on the pulse of what is cool. They know every rapper that I don't know anymore, and I celebrate late 90s gangster rap like no one else, and it really bothers me that I don't know any of these new rappers anymore, but we've been really lucky to do some great work with them. We've handled everything from brand manifestos, broadcasts, social content, I mean, you name it, and we've done it for them. And then they recently opened up a flagship Times Square store. So we did all of the visual content for that. Content for over like 500 different screens in their Times Square store, and their complete seasonal refreshes. They just opened up a store in Chicago on State Street. So my Chicago folks, I encourage you to check it out if you want to see some more of our work. And then they plan to open another 250 more over the next 2 years. So we are extraordinarily busy with this stuff. So we got this brief from them, create a distinct image for JD for the US consumer across all channels, product categories, and talent that's purposely separated from the current athletic specialty competitive set. Okay. And then support the evolutionary product by showing emerging trends with established brands, new brands, and product sales. So luckily they're always wanting to experiment. So, and 2 years ago, we had to pitch them on AI, like 3 years ago now. And what does it do again? Oh, it makes cool stuff. And I think at one point, I said, it's going to feel like occasionally Jesus is going to take the wheel, but like 2 years later, they're finally asking us for it. And this was perfect because we could take up to the second emerging trends that their client base needed and have those update through the entire post-production process. So the thing that we rendered out on the delivery day was as close to relevant as it could possibly be. And you got to think about this, like shoots, productions, they take months to plan. Post-production, is also a part of that. And we wanted to take AI and integrate it into this, not only because we're masochists, but we have this really sweet color suite that I'm talking to you from right now, and it's got a lot of really good video cards in it. So I wanted to burn them up and see what happens. So so this is Ty Dolla $ign. I don't know if anybody knows him. He's cool. He's really cool. We worked with the production teams to have these simple geometric set objects on set. So basically, so the AI had something to hook onto and affect. We couldn't touch the clothing, we couldn't touch him, and we wanted to keep him unaffected, but we wanted to see what we could do with those objects and apply the relevant up to the moment brands they were trying to hit on those objects and see what we could do. So we trained our own model of stable diffusion, and with our own elements. It's ours. It's made of our own stuff, photos, past ideas, motion graphic elements. It's our 11 dB AI model, right? So this was version 1, and I'd never done anything like this. And we're working with like 4K footage, which I realize is not what stable diffusion likes. So we had a lot of problems, what's happening here. So version 5, it starts to get a little bit cooler. Some of the keywords here were, Paris, Neo Tokyo, LTGBQ, genderless, gender fluid, art, that type of thing. So I don't know if you can see it, but you start to see little things like the Eiffel Tower and some of those pyramids turning into recognizable shapes, like, the Tokyo Tower, Eiffel Tower kind of hybrid. Here's version 13. So we start to kind of figure out the process and dial it in a little bit, right? So, really refining and grabbing onto what we're seeing with the pyramids. They're turning into like scaffolding and then building into organic, like semi-organic shape. I'm like, this is kind of neat. And then here's version 31, which is, we learned a lot from 13 to 31, but integrating other tools from our workflow into it, like Fusion and After Effects, and coming up with something that starts to, check the boxes on those, brands that they wanted to hit. So we start to see some pretty neat things here. Here's some stills from it, but little, like, I don't know what's happening in the bottom right corner there, that statue on the pedestal thing, or that I love, like, the neon, Eiffel Tower, Tokyo Tower thing. Like, it's picking up on the cues, and these are all brought on by the prompts off of that, model that we created, that checkpoint that we created, and really neat stuff starts to happen. So, so I'll show you the finished product here, and we'll see how well it plays. But this got, I think, like, I don't know, like 3.5, 4 million views just on YouTube alone. But here it is. Maybe. So that's got to get edited, right? That's got to get color corrected. There are still tons of human hands working this process to try to get it to where we wanted it to be. And the total time for post-production on that was 7 days, right? Like, and we had never done anything like that before. They were, as a sports brand, they were one of the I think the first to market with a piece of AI content in it. So it was like an execution, an exercise in execution. Let's set a standard so we can create more AI driven content. Let's experiment. Let's be dangerous. Let's screw up, but let's do it with a client, so we get some money while we're doing it. And so we're able to take them on a little bit of adventure, and then suddenly, we're kind of the experiment place with them. So,
you said it was 1 week for that. What would that have been without Stable Diffusion?
I mean, just to come up with those, I mean, it renders them in 3D, like those are 3D looking models. That kind of development with storyboarding, with ideation, with motion graphics, with 3D, I would assume it, like, bare minimum, like a 1 month process. Yeah. And it wouldn't have been like nearly as fun because it's experimental, right? And like they need visuals that stand out, from the din that we were talking about earlier. And it's a really cool way to provide something. But it also told us that we can totally screw with a production after the fact, right? Like, now the tools are way better. This was a few months ago that we wrapped this up, but now the tools will allow us to do pretty much damn near anything we want. And instead of it being more of an experimental kind of a piece, we can really curate and make it super sticky and give it these visuals that totally just retake things on set. And that has got a lot of head spinning on the production side as far as like how we now interface with them if we're going to be using AI in a piece. So it's just, that's the value of experimenting. That's the value of taking risks. And it was super fun. So, and I've got one more thing, and I'll just quickly rip through it here because I know I've been talking for a while, but VFX cleanup, that's another big thing that we do here. So that means, getting rid of logos, getting rid of the mole on somebody's face, changing the eyes to like an avatar kind of contact lens, changing hair, getting rid of crap that you don't want in the shot, rebuilding scenes entirely. It's a huge time suck. And, I just fell in love with the new Photoshop beta. And I don't think, if you don't have this yet, go get it, because it is absolutely mind blowing what I've been able to do with it over the course of, you know, the couple of weeks I've had it. You know, one of the things that we get a lot here, you know, and here's a still from a project we're working on. You know, if you look in the upper left, upper right corners, you see sometimes there's C-stands in the shot with lights on them that you got to get rid of, and it's a total pain in the ass because, you know, people walk past the lighting and it changes lighting and things like that. Now I go remove these objects and they go away. It's really incredible. They go away in like 15 seconds. They're gone. Like I take that into After Effects. I track those layers onto you know, the piece. I add a little grain back into it so it matches the footage, and no one can tell. You would never know. I can change anything in that scene to be something else, and no one would ever know. And do it in like a millionth of the time it would normally take. It's insane what we can do now. And then, you know, like there's another thing called set extensions, right? Where, you know, we'll, you know, shoot somebody out here in somebody's backyard in like a burb of Denver. But then we need to make it look like they're in Italy, right? And you know, composite them back in there. So all of that is just based on us being able to manipulate footage and backgrounds, and you know, Photoshop is a huge component of that, and that in itself is just such a you know, an attainable way where you don't really need to know code. It's not like remove these objects is brain surgery, you know. Like I'm like, how basic can I ask it to do this thing, and it just does it. Like this is in your face when you go in the Photoshop beta. It's not even like a filter you got to go find anymore. It is there when you select something. There's a text box that comes up, and what do you want to do with it? And a generate button. It's nuts. And that took 30 minutes. Like I wish these tools were out, you know, so I didn't have to suck so hard back in the day. Like, I've learned so much, you know, exponentially over the last couple of years here of better ways to make the workflow work, you know, like, and big things to remember here is that, you know, it's a tool, right? It's a tool for ideas and inspiration, and experience drives good creative output. So to go back on that first question that we had, you need to be able to use these tools. You need to be able to drive the car, you know, instead of letting it drive it for you. Because when you do, you begin to create work and efficiencies that allow you to do things that made you fall in love with what it is that you do. Like it takes all of the mundane tasks away from you and frees your time up to use your human skills, right? Like empathy and judgment and creativity and innovation. And you're able to take those things and show them to other people. And suddenly you've got a core group of really, you know, a handful of people that can like absolutely change the world. It's nuts. And these are super simple things that I'm talking about here, but they're all attainable for anybody at, you know, that's watching this right now. Like these are all free. They're there. You need to know how to use them, you know, obviously, but you also need to put your spin on it. You know, how can you don't have to use them all at the same time. You know, if this thing's going to save me a little time over here, I'm going to use this all the time now in everything that I do. And that gives me hours, days back, where then, you know, I can either be creative on something else, or I can ideate on something bigger or different than what we've done in the past, you know, and that's again, you know, my role at the company is to like try to put things into place that inspire the people around me to use them, because it's going to inspire them to be better, right? And you know, that's kind of the big takeaway from this thing. So I mean, thank you all for, you know, setting your bar low and allowing me to be here, you know, tonight and speak at you a bit about this stuff. But you know, this is really where, you know, I think things are going, and I really hope everybody has a chance to excel on it. So thank you all so much for your time on this, and hope you learned stuff. And if you got questions, I hear a lot of bloops.
Yeah,
bloops
there's a lot of bloops going on, Christian. First of all, like amazing work. So thank you. Yeah, if you have questions online, raise your hand and Ken will call on you. If you do here in Denver, raise your hand. Why don't we start with Jade?
Yeah, you kind of touched on it at the end as far as like saving hours and days and weeks on on these projects because you're using these tools and how it could like make you more creative. I wondered if you could just kind of elaborate that a little bit, like what do you do with the time you save? Like, do you pick up, like, I'm asking you personally, like, do you pick up more projects? Like, is your team more creative? Like, what do you do with that time?
I do things like this, you know. You know, I get to talk to people about this stuff. Like, I mean, it's not, you know, I'm a huge AI advocate, obviously, you can tell, but it's because I've used it and I see a lot of benefits from it. So, you know, it like, yes, it does allow me to pick up a lot more work. And like, that brings up a whole nother set of problems, right? Like, you know, when people know that work doesn't take as long, you know, how do you define your value, right? So that's something, you know, that I think is an issue for a lot of people right now. And it will be a larger issue for a lot of people when people are far more efficient. And we all joke about, like, you know, being more efficient means you get more work and nobody's paying you more. But, you know, what do you do with that extra time? Do you take that and continue to do the things that you are really good at? Or does that free up your brain where you know, you have ideas, you know, you all are creative in your own different ways, and you're able to, you know, have ideas and spark things, and they're in the back of your head, and you're like, I just don't have the time to react on any of this stuff. Like, wouldn't it be cool one day if I was able to X, Y, and Z, right? That frees up the time for you to be able to implement those things and say, you know, like, how do I attain this goal, right? And I think, like, you know, Chat GPT is one of those things where, you know, you have the entire, you know, universe of human knowledge at your disposal, right? Like, you can go and ask it, you know, how do I achieve this goal? What are the step-by-step ways? Here's where I'm currently at, you know, in my career, in my skill set. Here's a representation of myself. How do I get from point A to point B? You know, and what it can do is allow you to have the time to begin to grow yourself, you know, as a creative. Like, let's say you want to get into color correction more, you know, hey, you've got more time to experiment with color correction. You know, they're like, it's little things, right? Like, and I'm sounding super aspirational here, but like, you get one free hour in your day to do what you want and learn something new, that becomes 2, right? And then that becomes, you know, 3 and 4. And how are you using those 4 hours? Well, now you're super efficient and you've got a whole bunch of different ways to be more efficient. It's not going to take you years to attain a goal anymore, right? It will take you much, much less time. So those efficiencies kind of ripple effect into like a lifestyle, I think, in a sense. And that's the way I kind of approach it. So.
I think it ties back to, I totally agree. And that's my thinking too. I think it ties back to something somebody said, Alan, I think it was, who was like, you know, because this is a question that's been going through my mind, like, why do we need to work 40 hours a week?
Right.
Why can't we work, like, if you can do your project and do it in 5 hours and then like go home and like play the piano or coach a kid's soccer, like, why do we work 40
Does
hours
that
a week?
matter? Yeah.
You know, like, if you can make the same amount of money in less time and like make a living and then go live and be a human, let's do that. That's it. Anyway, so thank you for your answer.
Yeah, no, man, I totally identify with that statement, you know, and I think if you get better as a human, you know, and learn new things, that's going to make you more valuable to yourself and everybody around you, you know. That's a thing to think about too.
Great. Ken, let's grab someone from online, then we'll come back to Denver.
All right, sounds good. Looks like Austin, you're up first.
Yeah, thanks, Christian, for that awesome presentation. That was stellar. With Stable Diffusion, my experience has been mostly individual images. So I'm just kind of curious about creating those video sequences. Like, are you feeding individual images frame by frame into Stable Diffusion?
Yes.
Are you able to feed it a full clip and then it spits it back to you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was messing with this a few months ago, it didn't have that ability. It does now, but I think it's limited in terms of the size and the duration of it. But before, for what you saw up there, that was an image sequence exported out, and you can do, you know, batch image sequence, generative imagery off of that. So you can lock in like a seed and a prompt, so it'll keep reapplying that same look to all of the subsequent frames. And then it renders out another image sequence, and then you stitch that back together and you get a video clip.
So you can feed into it a full like JPEG or PNG sequence.
100%. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
It's cool. When I found it could do that, I was like, we're doing some video.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna need to play with that. That's great.
Oh man, it's great. Plus you've got like, Gen 1, Gen 2. I don't know if you've ever messed with that stuff with Runway, but I got big into that, and I forgot to put it in, the sequence, but we did some really interesting stuff with the Paper Fashion Show. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it's a really great organization that gets kids hand on, and they create like dresses and fashion based on paper. So we're able to take a lot of that kind of style and integrate that into last year's video and run it through Gen 1 and apply some of these prompts we build off of some original stills, and it made some crazy content. So I'll follow up and show you that stuff later, but I mean, you can do some really amazing stuff with video now, for me, I feel like everything needs to be ran through something else afterwards, right? Like what it gives you is really cool, but I like to put my stank on it, and run it through After Effects and give it my look on things. And, and I think that's where, like that's still the human element. That's what keeps it, looking cool. Right. And, just I could talk on and on and on about this stuff.
I would love to chat with you more about this.
Yeah, man. Find me on LinkedIn. We'll get hooked up. It'll be great.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right, thanks for that question. Leah, you're up next.
Oh, Leah, I can't hear you.
You're muted, Leah.
Christian, thank you so much. There's a lot of similarities, I think, between our worlds. I'd love to hear I'd love to hear your thoughts on what are the jobs that are going to come out of these new processes that you're doing? So who already, as you are really integrating this, who are people missing? Or how are people who are already on your payroll shifting and evolving to accommodate sort of new areas that are opening up because of these new processes?
Oh man, I love this question. I was driving down here, and like one of our biggest problems in general is, having creating content like captions online for our own stuff. It's like trying to draw a portrait of yourself. You'll always think it sucks, and we always end up going through time and time again, like, I don't like the way this is said. This doesn't really identify with our voice. So I'm like, screw it. We got Copymatic, and I give it to the interns, and, we have everything, run from that. And it's just training ourselves on our voice. And, it's not always the best, but it's basically like ChatGPT distilled down into like a prim kind of style. That meaning, I want to make a LinkedIn profile, and I click that button, I type in, it gives me some fields to fill out, and it's super easy to use, and it's a good introduction into the unwieldy ChatGPT world. But just simple stuff like that, where people can come in, and if they have like one iota of AI knowledge base behind them supporting their creativity, I'd hire that in a heartbeat. Like if somebody can come in and like set up set up like show me the efficiencies with AI. And I had a review with one of my employees a couple weeks ago, and I was like, listen, and his role is support, right? Like he's an assistant editor type. He sets up the projects for everybody. And one of my favorite things is that he set a standard for us that we use, across the offices. So I'm like, listen, dude, you need to be the person, finding out what's going to make us more efficient at AI. And if you imagine walking into like a post-production shop and say, hey, I'm an assistant editor, but, I use AI to go through and like set up, templates and I have all sorts of ways to keep it organized. And, we don't have to think about it. I can do this. I could do 10 of these a day, like, why would I hire anybody else? It's like, come in, prove it, and show me how you make it better. Like, I think you can add, and I know AI to literally any job and make yourself like an order of magnitude more valuable to a company, and I think like that's the start, right? That's where we're at like right now. But I think like the crafting and the curation of prompts, you've got chief prompt officers and like all these like timely weird jobs coming out for these people, and And I see, I'm just post-production, right? That's my world. I'm not in the marketing I'm not in the marketing world, the agency side or anything like that. So, as far as that goes, the people, and we interface with agencies all the time, and I see a ton of really interesting job opportunities that could completely streamline and do data analysis, A/B testing before stuff goes to market. Like that's a huge thing for agencies to know what it's going to do before it even goes out, and then fix the problems, and then it goes out. Like if you know how to do that, like you go online, go to neurons.inc or Neurons Inc. I think it is. Like check those guys out. That's crazy stuff, and like people have been using them for a while. For a creative, I think it's just understanding like how to use the tools and when to use the tools, but apply them to like what you're doing currently. So you never lose focus on like why you're doing it. Like you don't want to just learn every single thing about AI because you're gonna, your blood's gonna start running out your ear, right? And you're gonna freak out and move to the mountains and eat chunky soup out of a can for the rest of your life. And it's just we got to make sure like you're tailored towards what you need. So yeah, hopefully that answers a little bit, but that's where I see things go.
Yeah, I love to hear your reflections on that. It's interesting to me to think about which holes are going to start being created and how new careers and new jobs and new expertises will happen because of that. So I really appreciate your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people freaked out too. And like, that's good. Like people got to get freaked out, and that's a completely normal human reaction to it. I think the VO talent people are freaked out. I think copywriters are freaked out. But again, it's going back to like, did you want to write, content for pharma for a 5-second YouTube pre-roll, when you graduated college? No, you didn't. You did not.
That's why you went to art school.
I went to art school to do that. You don't want that job, like learn AI, have it do it. Then you go do something cool, like that's how you got to think of it.
Yeah. I remember the transition from film photography to digital photography. A lot of jobs and things were lost, like labs, but also new jobs started, like Digitex, right? And so with changes in technology, things end and change, but there's also tons of new opportunities as well. And so I appreciated what you said about the prompting, the prompt crafting, and then the people who are coming in who know how to streamline what's already happening and make it more efficient using AI.
Yeah, and you can take all those sensibilities, and tailor them towards what you're currently trying to, your goal is. And that's the thing, like, because because your job goes away doesn't mean you're not good anymore, right? like you have an experience. It's the critical formula to all of this. And if you've got experience and you're creative and you're good at what you do, there's nothing that's stopping you from like reapplying what you do to a new set of tools. So a lot of those shops that closed down, they turned into digital intermediate shops, right? They turned into colorists that like went freelance and are making like, $500,000 a year. It's crazy, like there everything evolves. Everything evolves,
Great. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. Joey, you're up next.
Hi, yeah. This is a question more so for the whole group and Christian. I just wanted to see if maybe in the last couple of minutes I could do some show and tell and possibly give my thoughts on it. I've been here, but my aunt-in-law was over here, so I couldn't really participate.
Sure.
Yeah, if we've got time at the end, we'll absolutely do that. Let me grab a question here, and I know Richard.
Roger. So first of all, Boulder represent. So as a creative director, do you worry at all that conveying your direction in this highly detailed form of these fully rendered images takes away the opportunity for the recipient of that direction to apply their own interpretation of what used to be a much sparser, sketchier direction that you would have given? It's in a way, you're sort of telling them the answer before you give them a chance to do their job. Now, in theory, they can sort of back off and say, I know you didn't mean every detail, but it seems like there's a risk there that there's going to be details in what you gave them just because it's available to you that you didn't intend. And
absolutely,
how does the person on the other end of that direction know what you gave them you meant and what was just other stuff that came along because Midjourney filled it all in?
Oh man, no, that's great. That's a great question. And I think like the answer to that is that's different for every single client, right? Like Best Western is the type of client that needs to be shown exactly how it's going to look, right? So we gave exactly that to them. I wouldn't do that for every single client. And I think that's a really great point you bring up.
Well, I was actually more concerned within your own organization. Since you're a director, you give direction to other people, right? To do things.
Yeah.
That used to be like a sketch on on a piece of paper, right? Now it's a fully rendered image, and there's a whole lot more deep. Doesn't that? How do you get the people who are receiving your direction to apply their own creativity and not just take what you handed them?
Because I'm not the only one doing this now. Now we've got multiple people with the same skill sets doing this. So I'm making sure that I'm going, I think that's good, or I think that's bad. So the fact that they can do that is absolutely mind-blowing to me. And I encourage that at our place. I want to see them be better. I want to see them be better at what they do as well. And if they're pulling out things that I had no idea that they were capable of because of these tools helping them, reach a point where they're blocked, creatively, I think that's amazing. But in the end, there is a decision maker, and that comes from experience in the field. So I can look at something and immediately tell you, that's going to be right for the client or that's not going to be right for the client. And this is what I would do, to change that. So there is that element of creative direction. You're just creative directing a group of creative directors now.
Wow.
Being the kind of end all. And like, that's a really cool place to be, I think.
All right, thank you for that. Ben Heller, you have a question?
Hey, yeah. So my question is basically a lot of the stuff that I do in software engineering is kind of like, it's not that you can't do it because you can't do it. There's regulatory concerns around it. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, do you see the questions of it takes, a significant amount of like carbon and money and that kind of stuff as factoring into AI and kind of limiting what you guys can do? Because a lot of what I see at work is basically, you could do this the old-fashioned way. You could do it with AI, but when you're churning it through 70 or 80 GPUs, you're using up a lot of energy, and some clients maybe don't like that as much. So do you see that as like a future concern or something that'll just kind of be fixed by efficiency gains and that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that our stable diffusion model here runs off of a single video card. And when it's actually a color correction session, it's using, probably 800 and 900 watts of power, right?
Ooh.
If I'm using, one video card and no processing power or anything like that, it's actually more efficient, at least for the things that I do, Now what happens when I go to, go on Discord and like bang out Midjourney stuff, I don't know what happens after that. I think the same argument could be for, mining Bitcoin, right? Like, people got, like that sucked a lot of power. I mined Bitcoin at home for a while, and then I got my first bill, ComEd, and it was like, or Excel, and I was like, well, that was not worth it whatsoever. So, but now I'm able to take those cards and insert them into our machines and begin to create things from them, right? So I think like a lot of people have the sensibility of, hey, I spent like $2,000 on this video card. I'm going to use it in something else rather than have it just churn out cash, and burn out my power bill, at home. So I think, yeah. But I mean, I think when you have everybody doing the same type of work, and things have to be more efficient, right? Like it's not, Midjourney's on version 5. They are obviously back, and I'm sure they're working on 6, 7, 8, and 9 right now. And tons of people are using it. Millions and millions of people are using it. And I think it's, they're not going to make money by just offering this as a utility service, right? They have to find efficiencies. Like they're a business, and if a lot of people are going to be using them, it's going to make sense as a business to be as efficient as possible. So I feel like in our current state, we are very concerned about, how our impact, affects the environment, right? In general, not post-production specifically, but just everybody in general is very concerned about that. And I think that's a part of the transparency process, along with ethics, legal, that people have to be more transparent about, because you can easily just go in and find the information now, and you couldn't do that before. It was all hidden behind a veil, but it's not something I've actively run into, in my, industry here. But I definitely do think, I take it into account when I have to think about, like, how much power is this using? Is this going to break the circuit in the middle of a client session, right? And, for me, keeping the heat low, and keeping the efficiency high makes that thing run better. So if that's the mindset everybody has, I think it will help out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a quick question for you. I'm just kind of curious. I know Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Dolly, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but I'm curious how you go about making the decision which tool to use for each client that you have.
I started that Nota project, really kind of made the decision for me. It was a good test of like how to see what these things do and how to speak to each of them individually. And what I learned was Midjourney took my garbage and made it good, and I feel like the better I spoke to it, the better results I got. But for the learning curve to not be as steep, I thought Midjourney was the best entry. Dream Studio at the time, nice GUI interface, did what you wanted, looked pretty decent. Dolly was the one. Dolly was the one that I heard of first. I was like, this is incredible that you could just do this. And for me, like, that was the top. And now I feel like I know how to use it in combination with the other tools that I'm good at. So if I can, what I'll do too is just build assets from it, right? Like, I had to make a guy, in the script, he was peacocking, his brand, right? And he's got a shirt and it says your brand in blue letters. So I went on Midjourney and I was like, I said, make me a peacock feather, and made some variants of that, took it into Photoshop, screwed around with it a little bit, and was able to come up with the animation of like feathers coming out of his back and bouncing about, So now I use it on a utility purpose as well. So that's made it far more valuable for me. Or if I need just like a simple asset that I know I can't just go find on stock, what am I thinking of here? Like a championship belt with a taco on it, right? I'll just make that. And I'll spend 15 minutes making it, as opposed to, going into Illustrator for, to try to develop it on my own. Like, I'm not a print designer, right? Like, I'm a VFX guy. I do motion graphics and editing. So if I can use these tools that I'm totally unfamiliar with or have a basic knowledge of, and, bring them into my world, that's where I see those as being beneficial. So for me, it's Midjourney, man, all the way. For really unusual specific stuff, I love using, our model here of just automatic 1111. That again, that's free for everybody. You just need the hardware to run it. I think they have a Mac version too that is slightly limited. But I mean, there's how many apps in the App Store are using that stuff right now? I mean, it's easy. It's so easy to find something you want. So.
Awesome. Well, we're running up on time here. So first of all, Christian, thank you so much for your time. This was absolutely awesome, and just love your generosity and your energy. So thank you very much. Let's do the obligatory top clap.
I like that. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Check out Christian and $11, and this is super awesome. Leah. Another fine salon, I would say. What do you think?
Another one, and I'm so inspired by the way Christian has been integrating generative art not as the final piece, but as a way to create assets and different elements to include into a final piece. I think that's a very exciting way to think about generative art. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And it was also, for me, it was a lot of the just the idea that these tools aren't something that you give a prompt and you get a final thing out. That it's a back and forth, that it's this collaborative process where you're still the pilot, it's your assistant, right? It's your co-pilot. So
Well, and that's sort of true on two levels. There's the iteration within the tool, but also the previous point, which is the output of the tool may not be the final output of your work.
Right.
Right. It's wrapped in a
100%.
process that has all kinds of other stuff.
yeah, and it's you ultimately, as creative director or as as the conductor of the symphony to go, that's good, that's not good. As you said, Christian, thumbs up, thumbs down on the piece. That's still ultimately our call.
100%.
So,
And
yeah,
I think
with that,
that's going to be,
yeah, terrific. So thank you for your time. If you're here in Denver, we're hanging out at Zeppelin Station. We're doing a little after party after, so come to that. If you're online, thank you so much. I know it's late on the East Coast, so as always, it amazes me so many people come. And
Join us on Discord. Join us on LinkedIn. Lots of information on our YouTube channel. It's been great having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so
Cheers,
much.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We totally Jimmy Kimmel that guy who wanted to do it. Sorry.